Hi everyone, this is Lara Hammock from the Marble Jar channel, and in today's video I will talk about combining your finances in a way that is healthy and financially fruitful for your marriage or your serious relationship. So I've taken some informal polls among my friends, and I found that couples decide to handle their money in a bunch of different ways. The methods seem to break down into three basic types. Traditional, where both partners contribute and take from the same pot. Separate, so these partners work their long-term financial relationship as though they are still roommates. They each have separate accounts and they split the shared bills down the middle, like mortgage, utilities, and groceries. Or one person pays the bill and the other person Venmos them half the money. And finally, a hybrid of these two systems. So this involves both partners contributing a certain amount of money to a joint pot. Sometimes they'll each contribute a percentage of their earnings to the pot to make it a little bit more equitable. Sometimes they decide on certain bills that they will pay, like one person pays the rent and the other takes care of groceries and utilities. So here's the thing. Although any of these solutions can work, there is a lot of data showing that combining your money can make couples both more effective financially and happier together. So let's take a tiny bit of time to break each of these things down. Better financially. So whether you like it or not, when you marry someone, your assets, your debts, and your belongings are all merged, unless you signed a prenup, which is a whole other topic. Instead of individuals, the state now sees you as a joint financial unit. So if you were to get a divorce, the judge would more than likely just divide each of your accounts straight down the middle. Doesn't matter whose name is on what. And here's the thing. If you have debts that you need to pay off or goals that you're saving for, those no longer belong to you as an individual. They are now yours as a couple. And the thing is, pooling your money is the best way to handle each of these financial goals efficiently. So couples who put their money together pay off their debts more quickly, reach their financial goals faster, and build up more wealth in the long run. After all, money begets money. Put it together and it works harder for you. So the second point is that couples who combine their finances are generally happier. And by that I mean happier now and also happier long term. So couples who combine their money are less likely to get a divorce. And yes, I know we're talking here about correlation rather than causation, but let's try to determine why this might be. Well, one of the main components of a successful marriage is trust. And what can show more trust than pooling all of your money and deciding together how to spend it? So couples who put their money together have to have more frequent discussions about finances. Maybe this seems like it's just asking for trouble and stress, but all of that communication, as long as it's done with respect and love, can help you to define your priorities together, establish your values as a couple, and step by step build a future together rather than one that veers apart. Okay, so now that we've established that combining your money is good for your finances and good for your marriage, let me give you some guidelines to follow that will help you to make this successful. I'm going to do the quick ones first. Communication. So for this to work, you really have to communicate frequently. After all, you are managing your money as a unit, so everyone needs to be on board with most financial decisions. And depending on your situation, the frequency of your communication will be different. So if you are actively squeezing your budget to pay down debt, you may want to have weekly budget meetings. People who have money left over at the end of the month probably won't need to discuss finances quite as often. You should also have a trigger spending amount for when you need to discuss things with your partner, say any single object over $200 or whatever works in your financial situation. In terms of structuring this communication, I don't think anything beats a budget. So I am a full-on budget nerd, but I really think a budget can help a couple to make decisions, to plan ahead, and to discuss their financial priorities. So I have lots of other videos on budgeting and on budgeting apps that you can check out if you are interested in that. Next, remember that a marriage is built on trust. So this is the person you agree to spend the rest of your life with. Give them some grace and some trust that you will make these decisions well together. If you are the money person, try not to micromanage too much. It will put a strain on your relationship. And also remember, each person has a different style. So some people are savers, some people are spenders. Some people are tight, some are free spirits. Remind yourself that you were drawn to your partner for a myriad of reasons. Don't try to force them into a different style. And if you are a budget nerd, appreciate that your partner's more carefree style may help to make your life more spontaneous and fun and generous. Which brings me to my main piece of advice: create separate personal funds. Okay, who am I kidding? This is an allowance. Each person should have his or her own slush fund to do with as they please. After all, we're all adults here, right? Presumably, each person has independently managed their own money at some point in their life without having to check in with another person. So that shouldn't stop just because you're married. This realization hit me pretty early on in my marriage. My husband and I have pretty different spending styles. He buys expensive things and uses them for a long time. I am cheap, but I lose things constantly. Just because we have different styles doesn't mean that one is right and the other one isn't. And he deserves to be able to make his own choices without my intense scrutiny, and vice versa. Although, to be frank, he doesn't really care how I spend my money. So how is this different from separate money or that hybrid model? It's different because you combine your money and then you decide together how much of your joint money to contribute to each personal fund. So this does not need to be equal amounts. My husband has a much bigger allowance than I do since I work from home and I don't have lunch or travel expenses. For us, personal funds cover clothing, haircuts, meals or drinks out that don't involve the couple or the family, personal subscriptions. You get the picture. Essentially anything that doesn't benefit the family or the overall household. Now, there are a couple of ways that you can implement these personal funds. You can set up separate personal bank accounts for each person. Then at the beginning of each month, you transfer that set amount of money from your joint account into these personal accounts. Then each person manages that account however they please. If you are on a tight budget, having separate bank accounts does help to prevent overspending. Another way is to set up each fund as a budget line item. So we use YNAB for budgeting, but this would work for any budgeting system. You can create a budget line item for each person and you just budget that amount of money at the beginning of each month. You need to make sure that your system rolls over what is left over at the end of the month, since you should be able to save from month to month for bigger events or bigger purchases. If you like this approach, but you don't want to have every single personal transaction come through your budgeting system, you can set up you or your spouse with their own credit card that you make sure you pay off at the end of every month and that goes against that budget line item. So many couples are fine about communicating about household purchases, but they would really prefer to manage their own personal accounts without a ton of input or commentary from your spouse. And that is it. Let me know what you think. Comments are always appreciated, and thanks for watching.